Days passed since the battle with the spirit, but Chioma felt no peace. The villagers rejoiced, yet Chioma's heart was unsettled. Every night, the same dream haunted her, a figure calling her name from the depth of the dark forest, its voice filled with sorrow and rage. Tonight, she woke up in a cold sweat, her heart racing. Something was coming. Something worse than the spirit she had destroyed. As the sun rose, Chioma decided to visit the village elder. If anyone could help her make sense of the dreams, it was him. When she arrived, she found the elder sitting by a fire, his gaze distant as if he had been expecting her. Without a word, he handed her a carved wooden mask, an artifact that had been passed down for generations. "The darkness you vanquished was only a fragment," he whispered. "The true evil lies deeper, within the earth itself." Chioma followed the elder's instructions, venturing deep into the forest where the trees grew twisted and ancient. She finally came upon the hidden cave, its entrance shrouded in vines and thick moss. Inside, the air was cold and still, the walls lined with markings she couldn't understand. But at the very end of the cave, she saw it, an altar, glowing faintly with an eerie light, and a small, crumbling statue that seemed almost alive. As Chioma approached the altar, the air around her grew colder. A low voice echoed through the cave, speaking her name in a language she did not understand. Suddenly, the statue's eyes flickered open. It wasn't a statue at all, it was the spirit's true form, weakened and desperate. "You thought you could destroy me," it hissed. "I am bound to the land, to the very soul of this place." Chioma raised her hand, but this time, her light flickered uncertainly. Chioma tried to summon the power that had saved the village, but something was wrong. Her light, once bright and unwavering, flickered weakly, barely illuminating the cave. The spirit laughed, its voice echoing off the cave walls. "You cannot defeat what you do not understand," it whispered, its form growing stronger with every passing second. Chioma took a step back, her heart pounding. The elder had warned her, this was no ordinary spirit. Desperation filled Chioma's chest as she realized her powers alone were not enough. She would have to make a sacrifice, one that went beyond anything she had ever imagined. The elder's words echoed in her mind, "The true evil lies within the earth." She knelt before the altar, her hands trembling as she touched the cold stone. "I will give what is required," she whispered, knowing full well the price would be steep. The spirit circled her slowly, its form shifting between solid and smoke. "You are willing to sacrifice?" it asked, its voice a soft hiss in her ear. "But what are you prepared to lose?" Chioma closed her eyes, her heart heavy. "My life is not mine to give," she said. "But my soul, my memories, my future, these I offer." The spirit paused, considering her words. For the first time, it seemed uncertain. The spirit hovered before her, silent for what felt like an eternity. Then, it spoke, "Very well. You will carry the burden of this land, and in return, I will give you the strength to save it. But know this, once the land is healed, you will be forgotten. Your name, your deeds, your very existence will fade." Chioma's heart sank, but she nodded. She had no choice. She placed her hand on the spirit's chest, and the deal was sealed. A surge of dark energy flooded through Chioma, and she gasped as her body absorbed the spirit's power. The ground trembled beneath her, and the walls of the cave groaned as the ancient magic coursed through the land once more. She could feel it, the curse lifting from the earth, from the village, from the children. But with it, a part of her soul was being stripped away, piece by piece. When it was over, Chioma fell to her knees, exhausted. The spirit was gone, dissolved into the very fabric of the earth, its power now hers. But she could feel the emptiness inside her. The villagers would be safe, the land would heal, but she would soon become nothing more than a distant memory. As she stood and looked towards the cave's entrance, the weight of her choice settled in. Chioma had saved them all, but she had lost herself in the process. Chioma stood at the edge of the village, watching as life slowly returned to normal. The crops flourished, the children's laughter echoed through the air, and the villagers went about their daily routines, unaware of the danger that had nearly destroyed them. But none of them looked at her. None of them remembered her. Just as the spirit had promised, Chioma had been erased from their memories. As the days passed, Chioma's sense of isolation deepened. She wandered the village, invisible to those she had saved. Their joy was bittersweet, for Chioma felt the emptiness growing inside her, an emptiness that no power could fill. She had sacrificed everything for their safety, but she had lost her place in the world. And now, something dark whispered in her soul. One night, as Chioma sat by the river, staring into the dark waters, she heard a familiar voice, soft, eerie, and filled with malice. "Did you think it was over?" The voice came from the shadows, and as Chioma turned, the ghostly figure of the spirit appeared before her once more. But this time, it wasn't threatening. It was mocking. "You gave everything, and yet you remain empty," it whispered. "But I can help you, if you let me." Chioma's heart pounded as the spirit's words sank in. It offered her what she secretly desired most: connection, purpose, and power. "I can restore what you've lost," it promised. "But you must embrace me fully. Together, we can shape this world, and you will never be forgotten again." For the first time, Chioma felt tempted. She had seen what the spirit was capable of. With its power, she could change her fate. But at what cost? Chioma retreated from the river, her mind torn between the spirit's offer and the path she had chosen. Could she live the rest of her life in this forgotten state, watching the world pass her by, knowing she had saved it but would never be a part of it? Or would she give in to the power that tempted her? Her thoughts raced as she wandered through the forest, the weight of her choices pressing down on her soul. As Chioma wandered, a sudden gust of wind swirled through the trees, carrying with it the faint sound of a familiar voice, Adenkule's voice. It called her name, soft and pleading. "Chioma, help us." She stopped in her tracks, her heart racing. Adenkule had never called out to her since she had left the village. Could it be that something had gone terribly wrong again? Chioma hurried back to the village, following the sound of Adenkule's voice. When she arrived, she found him standing at the edge of the village, his face pale and his eyes filled with fear. "Chioma, something is happening to the children. The curse, it's not gone. It's changed." His voice broke as he explained that the triplets had fallen ill again, and this time, their condition was far worse. Chioma rushed to Adenkule's home, where Bola sat beside the children's beds, tears streaming down her face. The triplets lay motionless, their skin cold, their breathing shallow. The curse had returned, but it was more insidious this time, slowly draining the life from them. Bola looked up at Chioma with a broken expression. "Please, you're the only one who can save them," she whispered. But Chioma knew that her powers were fading. What could she do now? Chioma stood over the children, her heart heavy with sorrow. She had already given so much, but the village needed her once again. The spirit's offer echoed in her mind. If she embraced its power, she could save the triplets. But doing so would mean losing herself completely. Chioma knelt beside the children, her hands trembling. She knew that whatever choice she made now would determine her fate and theirs. Chioma's heart raced as the spirit's dark power surged around her, its cold grip pulling her closer to the abyss. The triplets lay before her, their breaths shallow, as the villagers watched from a distance, oblivious to the silent battle for their lives. Chioma's hand trembled, suspended between light and darkness. She could feel the spirit's laughter echoing in her mind. But then, deep within her soul, something stirred, a strength she had long forgotten. Just as Chioma was about to make her choice, the ground beneath her feet trembled. A low rumble echoed through the village, followed by a violent shake that sent everyone into a panic. The earth split open, buildings crumbled, and terrified screams filled the air. Chioma stumbled back, breaking free from the spirit's influence as the tremor grew stronger. The spirit's voice screeched in anger, "You cannot escape me." But Chioma's focus had shifted. The village was collapsing, she had to act now. The spirit's rage filled the air, but Chioma pushed it aside. She rushed outside, where Adikanle stood, his face pale with fear. "We need to move everyone. Now," she shouted. Adikanle nodded, snapping out of his shock. Together, they rallied the villagers, urging them to leave everything behind and follow them to safety. But the earthquake showed no mercy, and the spirit's power lingered, threatening to pull them back into the chaos. Chioma led the villagers through the debris as the earthquake continued to tear the land apart. Adikanle guided them toward the forest path that led to the city, shouting to the villagers to stay close. The spirit's presence hovered, its voice haunting Chioma with every step. "You cannot save them without me," it whispered. But Chioma pressed on, refusing to give in. She had made her choice. She would save them, without the spirit's power. After what felt like an eternity, Chioma and the villagers reached the city. The earthquake had subsided, but the damage was done. Their homes were gone, their village in ruins. As the sun rose over the horizon, Chioma felt a wave of relief wash over her. They were safe. She turned to Adikanle, who nodded in gratitude, but there was no time to celebrate. They had survived, but now they had to start over. With the help of the city's people, Chioma and the villagers slowly rebuilt their lives. The transition was hard, but they found new purpose in this unfamiliar place. Chioma herself felt a strange peace settle over her, as if she had finally broken free from the spirit's dark grip. The curse that had haunted her for so long was lifted, and in its place, a new chapter of life began. Months passed, and Chioma began to find her place in the city. One day, while walking through the market, she crossed paths with a man she had met briefly in her earlier travels, a kind lawyer who had helped the villagers settle into their new lives. His name was Olimide. Their chance meeting turned into long conversations, shared meals, and slowly, a deep connection began to grow between them. Chioma had once thought her heart was too broken to love again, but Olimide's kindness and understanding slowly healed the wounds left by her past. He asked her to marry him, and this time, Chioma felt ready. She said yes. The wedding was a small, joyful celebration, filled with the laughter of the villagers and the city friends they had made. It was a new beginning for Chioma, a life she never thought possible. Years passed, and Chioma's life flourished. She and Olimide had 5 beautiful children, each one a blessing she never imagined she could have. Her past, with all its pain and struggles, had led her to this, a family, a community, and a future filled with love. She often thought of the village, of the trials she had endured, and the spirit's haunting words. But in the end, she had won. Not by power, but by choosing love, hope, and resilience. And as the years went by, the spirit that had once tormented her faded into a distant memory. Its dark promises held no power over her anymore. Chioma had found her way, not through magic or force, but through love and the strength to carry on. The village was gone, but its people had thrived. And so had she. The battle was over. The war for her soul had been won. Chioma had faced the darkness and found the light. And as the sun set over her new life, she knew this was only the beginning.